6 minutes. That's all it took to erase 30 Iranian ships, carrying thousands of tons of tanks, armor, and troops. 0 U.S. casualties, hundreds captured. Complete victory. But how exactly can a modern superpower vaporize an entire invasion force with such speed? Stick with me, because once you see how the kill box works, you'll realize why no commander ever wants to sail into one again. Before we move on, I will like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. How could 30 ships, carrying tanks, armored carriers, and marines, cross the vast Pacific almost unnoticed? On radar, they looked like cargo vessels heading toward the northwest coast. Nothing unusual at first glance. Each ship carried falsified manifests, fake transponders, and well-rehearsed radio chatter identical to countless commercial freighters. From above, the decks looked plain. Containers stacked in neat order. Beneath those covers, though, sat armored columns wrapped in heavy tarps, engines chained in place, and men preparing for a landing operation they believed invisible to American eyes. Their destination wasn't a major port or naval facility. The target was a quiet Oregon fishing town, chosen for its weak defenses, modest harbor, and direct highways leading inland. The gamble was enormous. 30 amphibious assault vessels hidden in plain sight, coordinated by encrypted communication designed to deflect interception. A secure link bounced signals through neutral satellites, coding orders in bursts that lasted less than 2 seconds each. The plan relied not only on secrecy, but on the assumption that American defenses would never expect such an approach. At a distance, it seemed clever, even bold. The ships carried enough firepower to overwhelm any local guard. Inside the holds, the numbers told the real story. 120 main battle tanks stood chained to steel floors, fuel topped off, ammunition packed close at hand. 60 armored personnel carriers waited with their turrets locked forward. 500 Marines shared the decks, each carrying modern rifles with grenades stacked in crates nearby. In all, more than 6,000 tons of armor and manpower moved across the ocean. A floating force large enough to level a city block by block once landed. From a distance, the imbalance looked troubling. Thousands of tons of armor against a coastline assuming itself safe. The public believed such operations belonged to history books, not modern conflict. But invisibility has limits. Masked signals and fake hull markings can hide from commercial tracking, but they can't blind the sky. At 65,000 feet, a stealth reconnaissance drone lingered in silence. Its optics swept wide arcs, while synthetic radar painted every vessel with sharp outlines. Every 5 seconds, it uploaded live updates to servers thousands of miles away, redrawing the route of every ship in the convoy. What Iran thought was silence was already a clear map. Commanders on the ground weren't scrambling or rushing men to stations. They studied. They updated coordinates. By the time the flotilla entered the mid-ocean corridor, the pieces of a box had already closed around them. Invisible to the crews below, the corridor wasn't a shipping lane at all, but a pre-planned space marked as a kill box. Once inside, their courses and speeds eliminated every escape option. 6 minutes later, the first shot inside that corridor would show what happens when invisibility collides with constant surveillance. What happens when precision-guided firepower converges from air, sea, and land inside a 6-minute window. At 2:42 in the morning, the disguised Iranian flotilla slid into the coordinates of the preset kill box. On the surface, nothing seemed unusual. Radio chatter remained calm. Crews walked the decks, and engines rumbled at steady speed. To the men aboard these ships, it was another quiet stretch of ocean. But overhead and underwater, the trap was already alive, waiting for the order to strike. For almost 20 minutes, the convoy drifted undisturbed, convinced their disguises still worked. No American voices on the radio, no signs of patrol aircraft circling, not even a distant radar ping to spook them. The silence built confidence. But it was also the sound before detonation, when the window closed around them. The first strike came from the night sky. 80 MQ-25 Stingray drones, already hovering outside radar range, surged forward. In a synchronized pass, they dropped 160 precision bombs, each targeted onto a vessel in the vanguard. Within seconds, steel decks tore open, flames lit the horizon, and containers designed to hide tanks exploded outward, throwing armored vehicles into the dark water. Chaos ripped through the flotilla in less than 5 seconds. Radios screamed with broken commands as operators struggled to lock cameras back onto the night sky. By 4.8 seconds after the initial strike, Most of their forward sensors were shattered, antennas bent double, and communication networks snapping apart. Survivors reported later that the ships rocked as if struck by giant fists, the sea reflecting fire from multiple angles. Some Marines tried to man heavy machine guns, but the drones had already passed beyond reach, circling back for another run. Underwater, the second wave moved. The USS North Dakota, a Virginia-class attack submarine lying in silence beneath the current, fired a spread of heavyweight torpedoes designed to punch through the hulls. The sound underwater was described as metal splitting apart. The pressure reached over 500 pounds per square inch, enough to break steel beams beneath the keels. Entire sections of ships lifted, then folded back against themselves before sinking into the dark. 3 more U.S. submarines joined in, torpedoes cutting gaps into engines and fuel stores, turning escape routes into underwater graveyards. On land, the final layer came into play. Coastal missile batteries along Oregon's shoreline launched 24 Harpoon missiles aimed at the stragglers trying to peel away. Guided radar tracked every angle of retreat, and the missiles locked on, slamming into ships, attempting to steer out of the corridor. Survivors watched as exhaust trails streaked the sky, followed almost instantly by eruptions among the remnants of the fleet. In just over 6 minutes, 26 ships were gone. 4 more left burning or immobilized. The Pacific was littered with twisted steel and floating debris, scattered survivors clinging to rafts or overturned containers. The illusion of invisibility had collapsed, replaced by the reality of coordinated destruction. What followed wasn't just the end of a single mission, but a shift in how adversaries would measure American defenses. Why did a 6-minute battle change the way rivals view American shores forever? In the aftermath, the wreckage stretched for miles. 26 ships were gone. 4 sat crippled and burning, and the remains of thousands of tons of equipment sank to the bottom of the Pacific. Rough counts spoke of 300 men killed in the opening minutes, and more than 200 pulled alive from smoking rafts and fractured hulls. Tanks, armored transports, and supplies that were meant to roll onto American soil never touched land, rusting instead on the ocean floor. Not a single U.S. casualty came from the engagement. The imbalance was striking. A mission designed to shock the United States had ended with only one side bleeding. That paradox fed questions even among the survivors. How could something so decisive look almost too clean? More like a military demonstration than a chaotic war zone. For the Pentagon, the clean result wasn't an accident. It was the framework of the kill box in practice. What seemed surgical on the outside was linked to another success inside the captured survivors. Mixed in with Marines and low-ranking sailors sat several Iranian officers of higher rank who carried encrypted gear. Those devices became the real prize. Within hours, analysts were pouring through them, unwrapping an intelligence chain that exposed far more than one failed landing. The material showed that Operation Black Tide wasn't isolated. 2 more landings were scheduled, aimed at different points along the western seaboard. Instead of confusion, the U.S. moved at a pace rarely seen in intelligence work. In just 36 hours, the encryption was broken and the data translated. Those follow-up plans dissolved before they even crossed into motion. The original fleet's destruction had been near total, but now the remaining strands of the operation unraveled because the secrecy around them collapsed. Global reactions unfolded rapidly. Militaries with ambitions of seaborne invasions now had to consider the cost of entering waters controlled by layered American weapons. The doctrine on display was clear: instant, coordinated annihilation from multiple domains that left almost no path to survival. Some critics, however, pointed out that strike dominance without placing forces on the ground left parts of the adversary's capacity intact outside the immediate battlefield. A navy had been broken, but broader command structures remained untouched. Operation Black Tide leaves one clear message: modern invasions can be erased before landfall. What once required drawn-out campaigns now happens in minutes, with fleets undone before soldiers even disembark. The killbox doctrine turns vast stretches of ocean into precise and invisible traps, where warships and armor become easy targets rather than threats. It warns every rival commander that reaching American shores is no longer about distance or stealth. It is about survival against layers of instant precision firepower. So the question remains, what nation would risk deploying a fleet if 6 minutes could end everything?